Hello, and welcome to Exploring Axon, a podcast where we discuss Axon Framework, Axon Server, and their ecosystem. I am your host and a software developer at AxonIQ, Sara. In this episode, I spoke with our CTO and co-founder Allard Buijze about Axon Server and its latest release 4.6. He highlighted some of the features and enhancements in this release, as well as giving a little teaser or two about Axon Framework's upcoming release and its features. We then talked about our much anticipated event of the year, AxonIQ Conference, which will take place in Tobacco Theatre at the heart of Old Amsterdam on September 22nd and 23rd this year. We talked about the format of the various sessions and workshops we offer, as well as some of the topics that will be covered. We have some ideas for our attendees to contribute to our features and enhancements in the future. And we also talked about how we were going to do that. For more information on our conference, please visit us at www.axoniq.io, and I hope to see you all there. Now let's have a listen. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome back.
Yeah,
long time no talk here. I know.
Exactly. Let's hope I have some news to share then.
I think we skipped a season there, huh?
But that's good. I mean, there's plenty of other interesting conversations to have. So
of course,
it's always good
to
chat around a little bit.
Of course, but always fun to have you back. So welcome back, and let's talk about what's new in the world of Axon and what's coming up. So I thought since we just had a release not too long ago, let's maybe start by talking about that a little bit, and then we have some event I hear coming up, so we can talk about that in a little bit. So with that said, we just had a release for Axon Server, didn't we? I think what last month? Yeah.
Correct. It was my holiday surprise. It's always nice to have a team working on things while you enjoy the beach.
Must be nice.
Absolutely. So that was one of my, I guess, one of the most notable releases that we have from my point of view.
Of course, because you are gone.
Colleagues that are listening.
Everything went very smoothly, right?
Absolutely. No, it was actually a pretty tough one because there's been quite a lot going on, and at the surface you might not always notice what's happening in those releases, but there's been quite a few little improvements and quite significant performance improvements that we've been able to make as well. So that's
so
good.
Let's talk
so
about
if you're on Axon Server and you are on 4.5, just for that one reason, just update to 4.6 simply because it will perform faster under the same CPU. It is less memory aggressive, and in general just better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that always takes a lot of work, but we like to squeeze everything out of the resources that we can, and then incrementally just make it better.
Yeah, of course.
But of course, there's also we also have a couple of new features in there, just some new toys to play with, I guess.
So tell me more about those.
Yeah, so now I have to pick one, right? Which is the coolest one, and so let me just go in random order. There's quite a few.
You don't have to pick your favorite kid. You can talk about all of them.
All right. Let's see how far we get then.
Let's do it.
No, I think one of the nicest things is that we've got a lot of community feedback on these query messages that return a list of items, right. and quite often that list of elements would grow too large for a single message size, and that, I mean, it was completely explainable, but it doesn't feel nice, right? It doesn't feel nice that you have this limit, because gRPC, which is a protocol we use underneath, has for security and resource protection reasons, it has a max message size,
right,
which is typically around a few megabytes, right? But you can increase that. That's not a problem. But still, you can easily get at a few megabytes if you return a list of elements in a query. So what we support in 4.6 is what we call streaming queries. And they're not to be confused with subscription queries. And they're somewhat
Right.
similar, but they are very, very different. So the idea of a streaming query is that you ask a question, you send a query message, and then you get the response, which is still considered a single response. But instead of getting it as one message, you get chunks of that message as the query goes. Now, you could theoretically produce an answer on the other side that is indefinite.
Right.
That just keeps on going, and that has no end, right?
Yeah. So, question on that one. You did mention the subscription query, so that makes me think now. So, with subscription queries, the fun thing about it is that you get updates kind of in real time, right? And with the streaming queries, now you're getting chunks of them. Are they still coming as a list, and are we still getting them in real time, or that's not the case here?
So yes, you would still get them at real time. It depends a bit on what the client expects. So the
Okay.
fun thing is that you can use the streaming queries without even realizing it. So if you ask, for example, for a list of certain items, it
Right.
might be that underneath the messaging uses a streaming query to get the list from one side to the other, even though you're just asking for a list itself.
Right.
But you can also say, I want a stream of elements. And then if the server says, I provide a stream of elements, then theoretically that stream could never end. We do not recommend doing that, but it is theoretically possible. The intent, though, of a streaming query is still to provide a single answer to a single question. It is just that the answer is sort of chunked into smaller pieces
Coming
so
in
that
increments.
we can get it, which is different from the subscription query where we say, well, we provide one answer, but we keep the connection open in case the answer changes.
Right.
And then we give updates. And that's why the initial results and the updates might be of different types. So the initial results might be a stream of or a list of elements, and then updates might consist of a single element that needs to be updated. Whereas the streaming query has is always a list of a certain element, right? And then the idea is to send over those elements, close that stream to notify that the client has everything now, and then the communication between the components will make sure that.
So I'm assuming you can't really combine the two, subscription and streaming, or you should
Not
not.
in the same call, but you
Yeah,
would
sure.
use one for the one use case and one for the other. Yeah, indeed.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
good. All right.
So that's one, and that should resolve for a while at least the max message problem, because we're chunking them in different messages.
So is there a sorry to cut you off there, but is there a limit now to the size of the message that you receive in a streaming query? Or since it is coming in smaller chunks, that doesn't really matter?
So that's a good one, because actually, yes, there still is a limit. However, it's a configurable limit, because there is still the maximum size of a single message that you need to stick to, which again, by default, I believe is about one megabyte, which is for the majority of cases plenty, but you can increase it. And
Gotcha.
and there's something related to that, which is actually a feature slash issue that only Axon Server Enterprise, or limitation that Axon Server Enterprise had, is the max message size is also a limitation for communication between Axon Server nodes, because it is a gRPC level restriction that we have to deal with, I guess. And the challenge there is that when you have a very large transaction, then Axon Server Enterprise will share that transaction to all the nodes and make sure that it gets replicated, etc. And those are to make sure that these updates are atomic. They are one message. Unlike Axon Server 4.5, 4.6 does not have a restriction anymore on the number of events that you have in a single transaction, and also does not have any. Well, it does have a limitation on size, but that limitation is 2 gigabytes. Now, if you have a transaction of more than 2 gigabytes, there might be other things to worry about.
Right.
There might be a little design issue, because event sourcing with 2 gigabytes of transactions is generally not
recommended.
Well, I haven't seen a situation where I couldn't find another way to solve that.
Kind of
there's a
defeats the
couple of
purpose,
limits
doesn't
that
it?
we've removed. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other benefits, which I guess in certain environments where you have a lot of messages per transaction, a lot of events that you need to somehow share in a single transaction, they would be addressed there.
Right.
And then there, well, we all know about the UI in Axon Server. It has a little UI, dashboard where you can see information about the current connected applications. So we gave that a little paint update. The dashboard has been has seen some minor UI updates.
Any specific ones that you care to share?
Well, no, well, yeah, the color, no. So
The font is different.
There's a few different fonts. There's a different icon. Well, it is a thing that you immediately see. Like, hey, it feels different.
Right.
No, but for example, the overview screen, we had some users with very large numbers of connected applications, and then it doesn't render properly. So there's different views that you can use in the application. You can filter, for example, per context. So you can say, okay, only show the applications that are connected to a specific context, and it filters out the rest. So there's more ways now to visualize the information of connected applications.
Nice. Great.
The query UI is also a bit more performant, and it has pagination, so it works faster.
Wonderful.
So we thought we had a sort of a performance problem in the query, but it was just a rendering performance issue in the UI. So you should be able to visualize that data much faster now as well.
Wonderful. And I hear there's a bit of support now for the CLI. So has that changed drastically, or?
Well, there's still the so there's a CLI, but there's so we always had HTTP interfaces on Axon Server, right, to interact with, which the earlier versions of the CLI used, and now there's new CLIs. Well, we're still improving on those as well. And they use, you can actually now also from applications, you can use what we call the admin API.
Oh, great.
Which is
tell me a little bit about that, because I know this was a big one.
This was definitely a big one, because we noticed that over time, the number of interactions you could do through APIs or CLI in that respect grew quite a bit. But we also got requests from application developers to also, from that application, interact with Axon Server. And then we can say, yeah, of course, you have the HTTP API that you can use, but it makes it a bit awkward. You have this nice Java API on one side that uses gRPC, and now you have to add another one on HTTP. So we combined all of that into what we call the admin API, which is a bunch of gRPC calls that we've added to the connector as well. Where you can do all sort of administrative operations, like creating contexts, creating applications. Of course, now I need to mention a few out of the top of my head. But
sorry, I put you there on the spot.
Listing the contexts, which is actually quite interesting, because it inspired some of our colleagues to build extensions for Axon Framework, and one of them is, for example, the multi-tenancy extension.
Yep.
And it was really amazing that some conceptual ideas suddenly became very, well, not easy, but at least accessible.
Yeah.
For example, the multi-tenancy extension is able to just retrieve the context, and based on a naming convention that you could have in these contexts, it can distinguish between, okay, this is the actual context, but it exists for several tenants of my application. Yeah. Which makes multi-tenancy in combination with Axon Server and multi-context much easier to use. And in fact, you only need to have these contexts created, which again can be done from Axon Server client. Right. And the multi-tenancy extension will automatically recognize, hey, there's a new tenant, so I need to update my event processing to include that tenant, etc. So, but at the base of that is the admin API, which allows you to.
Which is really great,
to perform all sorts of administrative operations.
Yeah. Nice. So any changes in the plugins? You mentioned the extension, but any other changes?
Well, there's in the plugin API itself is still more or less the same as it was. I believe there was one new feature now that you can get some information about the environment that it's installed in, which edition, which version of Axon Server you're in. Because we have noticed that some plugins do depend on specific features that are only available in specific versions. So then you can do a quick version check for the plugin and disable it automatically.
Wonderful.
But we do expect some improvements and changes coming up in the future for those.
Which I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask. So I will get into what's coming up next for Axon Server, but maybe before we get there, can we touch on the framework a little bit? So Server and Framework historically have been released around the same time, but this time there was a bit of change. Can you tell me a little bit about that and why that was decided, or maybe it was sort of happened as a chance? So what was the reason, or if there was a reason?
Both of those, actually.
All of the above.
Time. So the way we work is we have ideas for a new version, and then we identify some of those features that need to be updated both in Axon Framework and Axon Server, right? And that is historically what we've been doing. So 4.6 is, for example, the release where the streaming queries were added. So that means that Axon Server 4.6 will provide the Axon Server side of that feature, and Axon Framework will use that feature as of 4.6. Now, something has been happening, and there's a few features that we feel we should or must actually include in Axon Framework 4.6. But those features, there's especially one which is quite a big one. It had a lot of impact, but it also provides a lot of value. Right. And we preferred, or we decided to postpone the release for Axon Framework 4.6 a little bit. We were actually finishing off that feature, so we expect it very early September to be released as well. And then Axon Framework will provide support for those streaming queries as well, as some other stuff that we'll announce once it's out. There.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin any parties.
Don't spoil the ending. Exactly, right.
No, let's not spoil. So just wait in there. A little cliffhanger. A bit longer. But there's some stuff.
Just a few more words.
I gave you the streaming query hint, but there's something else coming in. But it is so for this release, it is somewhat of a, I would say, coincidence or just circumstances. But we have made the decision from this release onwards to start separating the release cadence of Axon Server from the release cadence of Axon Framework. And that is for two reasons. But the main reason is that Axon Server is a different product, and the product actually does not rely on Axon Framework as much as the other way around. Yeah. Right? Well, maybe not even the other way around. I mean, in Axon Framework, you can use Oracle or whatever else you want to,
right? Exactly.
To store your events, right? Whatever floats your boat.
But no, just kidding.
Of course, it works better together.
I'm not saying any particular products here, but you know what's the best one.
Yeah, exactly.
Pairs well,
and you're right. Yeah, you should combine them, but you don't have to. Right. And we also have an increasing number of users of Server that don't even use Java, let alone Axon Framework.
Right. Yeah.
So and then Axon Framework, there's the type of management or version control that you would need to do from an application perspective is very different from what you would do in a system that has that you deploy as a server, right? As a process in that respect.
Right.
So what we want to provide, ideally we would do continuous delivery.
Right.
But that would mean that for every little feature, there's a new version, and we're afraid that users would quickly lose track of what's where, and
Which one they
is
need to
this feature
update
now a
to?
patch release,
Right.
and is this supported or not, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to change that, and we'll announce more details at the conference of how that will exactly work.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend coming there to
To get
listen
more
to
info.
that.
Yeah.
If you're not able to join, then you'll hear the details later as well. But so we're going to separate that, and I guess this is only a situation that just happened, but this will
It was a
probably
happy
happen more
coincidence,
in the
right?
future. Yes, exactly.
Great. So you did mention the conference. Shall we talk a little bit about that? Because that's coming up pretty soon here, right? We have just a little over a month.
Yeah, I was looking at the conference website to check the details, and there's this really scary counter, and it's
I
counting
know.
down, and it was always very comfortably at 60 days or 70 or 80, and
Now
now
it's 30
you
plus
come
days.
back from vacation and then you look at it, the counter again, and like, wow. Um, but it's good because the program is we have some last minute changes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of travel, there's always, especially in these times,
Yeah,
it's
of
quite
course.
tricky.
Yeah.
So we had to call upon our backup speakers to jump in.
Yeah.
But the program is finalized, and
Nice.
we're actually very happy.
So I think
with
we
the
should
program we
tell
put
everybody
together.
when it is. So it's September 22 and 23. And where is it? It's in Amsterdam, but tell
In
me more
Amsterdam,
details.
it's
Yeah.
really downtown Old Amsterdam, so
Nice.
really close to Central Station.
Mhm.
Unlike the previous edition of the conference, which we held more on the outside of Amsterdam, it was a really nice venue.
Yeah.
It was really good for conferences, but the surroundings were
Rather dull.
not quite inspiring, right? Well, hotels were cheaper
Of
in
course.
that area, but there was a reason for that.
Right.
And now we have a location, a really old venue. It used to be an old how do you say
Was it a
that?
factory?
Tobacco. No, they bring it in and sell it. Auction, a
Auction.
tobacco auction.
Okay.
So people would. The Netherlands was a big trading hub in the old days, and then later it became a theater. And so the setup is really, it has hints of that tobacco history.
So hence the tobacco theater.
And
Okay.
still, exactly.
Now I
Still
know.
no smoking inside, though.
Sure.
But,
Thank goodness. Right.
but there's plenty of tobacco
to be found
hints
around.
around.
Exactly.
So it's in the tobacco theater in the center of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it the full 2 days conference, or is it like half day, 1 day? How's it set up?
So the conference used to be one day, and we would really cram that day full of talks. And we got some complaints, positive complaints,
Yeah.
but still complaints that it was so much information.
Yeah.
That people found it, they got headaches out of that
Absorb
amount
all
of
of that, right?
information, and they needed a break.
Yeah.
So we, based on that feedback and some discussions we had with old-time visitors, we decided to make it a 2-day conference, and that allows us to get more content in, but we also made it less dense.
Right.
So there's a bit longer breaks between the talks, so there's more opportunity to actually mingle with the other visitors.
Fantastic.
Because that's also feedback we had.
Yeah.
Is that the breaks that were there, they're very meaningful or very valuable, because it is not just the speakers. This is not the type of conference that we'll just attend for the speakers. And I'm very sorry if some of the speakers are listening to this podcast.
We love them, but we also
of
want
course,
to
we
connect
love you
with
guys,
others.
and exactly we value you sharing your information on stage, but it's not the only information. And I've had some really, really nice discussions in the hallway, quote unquote.
Yeah.
With other people just using the framework. Most people that come there are either they want to hear about how it is to use Axon framework or server in projects, or they have an experience that they would like to share. Well, bring those together and magic happens.
Yeah.
And that's really what the conference is about. So we have plenty of talks about various subjects. We have some of our customers that are going to share some pretty amazing use cases. Right, there's these huge enterprises that use Axon apparently in very large parts of their systems, but there's also these very small use cases that really improve the world.
Yeah.
Right, that kind of. I don't want to give away any specifics if you
Just
want to find
hint,
out
it's not all in
details.
fintech.
Exactly, it's not all in fintech. There's some government-related projects as well. There's fintech too,
Of
right?
course,
So
of
if
course.
you're into fintech, there's
It's
one
sort of
of those too.
inseparable doing event sourcing without fintech sometimes, isn't it?
It's
That
hard
goes hand in hand, right?
to get around those use cases. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what I really like about this edition, we also had a call for papers for this edition, which is something relatively new. We did it not last year, but 2 years ago as well.
Yeah.
But this year we got quite a lot of submissions, and actually I had a choosing stress to pick the right ones.
Yeah.
And what was really nice is we have a growing number of partners in the world, and they all submitted something, and that's really nice. So we'll have a couple of talks from partner companies. Typically, they are consulting firms, and they share their experiences and their clients' experiences, and that's really, really nice. So we get really hands-on too.
Yeah.
It's not just abstract.
Yeah, and it's not just talks that you sit through and kind of snooze. There, some of them I've talked to some of the guests, and really, really interesting use cases, really fascinating projects. So it's I highly recommend it, and I am not biased at all. So
Of course, you're
not. But I think the format of the sessions in the conference are done pretty well as well, because the talks that we have are most of them are about 45 minutes long, so they're not too long, they're not too short, so it's just the right amount, I think, to get you the story and get your interest and attention going without putting you to sleep. And then we have the 2-hour workshops. What are we doing during those workshops? Can you give us some clues and hints?
Yes, absolutely. So, of course, traditionally, we'll always have a few workshops of our own if you want to play with all the new features that we've built, or are just curious. Hey, Axon Server, I've heard about it, and I've started the Docker image that I can get from Docker Hub, but I've never really played around with the clustering and how does that work. And if you want, you can do that in a workshop, right? You can just sit, you can pick your own exercises or things that you would like to do, and there's people from our colleagues walking around to assist you and help you with that. So there's a bit of controlled play environment, if you will. But of course, in an ecosystem, you cannot only have the product itself, right? So this is where we found a couple of again, it's those same partners. They suggested doing workshops. So we have one, for example, about testing a CQRS and event sourcing system.
Nice.
Right? There's some specifics, and then we're not talking about the unit tests, but also the integration tests and how does that work? How does the concept of testing change when you have an event-sourced system? Now we've all talked about the theory, but they're going to put it in practice and have you experience that, which is really nice.
Fantastic, yeah.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, we sit on the design side, and we have a couple of workshops. Now we've been talking about event storming and event modeling, but there's actually a third technique that pops up quite a lot these days, is domain storytelling.
Right.
Using stories to describe how a system works, or how a domain operates, or how things work within a certain domain. So one of our partners from Sweden is flying in to do a workshop on that. So if you're interested more in the design side and want to learn new techniques, this is definitely one.
Yeah, I'm definitely particularly excited about those because I love design.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I guess competing with that one is more also on the design side. is well, there's a bit of there's tooling, right, to design. We most of us
Yes.
know Miro, for example, or Miro, whatever, whichever
However you call it.
field or
Yeah.
side you're on. Um, I'm with Team Miro, but
Same.
the tool is really nice in terms of collaboration. You can event storm or event model your way quite nicely. However, your design is stuck
Yep.
there, right? You can build your design, and a former former customer of ours. So he used to be an architect working for the customer, but he decided to create his own company. Um, Not really around the corner in New Zealand, but he's coming over, which is pretty exciting, all the way from literally the other side of the planet
Yes.
to showcase some tools that he built to do event modeling or event storming, whichever you'd like to do, in a collaborative way, and then generate code from that.
Yeah,
And
which
he
is really
built
cool.
a connector, or let's say a plugin to generate your Axon classes. So not only your messages, but it can also generate
Yes.
the stubs for your aggregates, which is really
Amazing.
nice.
Yeah.
So
Really
he's going
looking forward to
to
that.
show that and share how that works, which is quite exciting.
Nice.
So you can get your hands dirty any way you want,
So
right?
bring your
Whichever
laptops.
part.
You'll be busy.
Absolutely, bring your laptop, and yeah, if you don't, then probably you can team up with somebody else. And,
Yeah, of course. And then, of course, we have, I
some
think, a
fun.
couple of shorter lightning talks in between several things, which those are, I think, I saw the title for those, and the titles themselves got me really interested to sit through those and see
Yeah,
what they're
I
talking
was
about.
disappointed with the fact that I learned about some of these talks being lightning talks, and I thought, oh, only 12 minutes.
You're like,
I'd
I
like
want more.
to listen for more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey.
So lightning talks are 12-minute talks,
Yeah.
so we can actually fit three of them within a single. So they're in the time slots of the workshop. So just in case one of the workshop slots you're like, yeah, this is
Not
not for
interested.
me,
Right.
or so there's the lightning talks as well. And then yeah, you can listen to smaller, shorter speeches. And we also have some open space. So there's also opportunity if you have a story to share, but you didn't prepare it, or but you feel like sharing it. There's plenty of opportunity to do that as well.
Nice. Very cool.
So that's something new that we're going to try this year. So
And
we'll
see how
find
it
out
goes.
how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you'll be talking more than 45 minutes about some of the things that we covered a little bit today, but further into more detail also about what's coming up with Axon next in terms of features and release cadences and so forth. But also, um, we have kind of an idea to get some feedback from our users as well. So, can you tell me what kind of stuff
Yeah.
we're going to do?
Yeah, before I answer that question, before you scare off everybody that I'm going to talk about, because they're going to look on
It's
the
not just
schedule and see,
Allard.
okay,
It's
it's
Allard
Allard
and
talking for
friends.
an hour and 15 minutes. Yeah, exactly.
Allard and
I
friends.
won't be talking for. I will do my best to not talk for an hour and 15 minutes, and trust me, that's a tough job for me.
Right.
But no, what we're going to do is we are going to share much more details
Mhm.
about what we're going to do and what we're planning to do. And there will be others on stage as well to talk about those. So it's not just me. That's the good news.
Yeah. Great.
Um,
Phew. Right.
but in especially in the part of what's coming up,
Mhm.
it's not just us. It's you.
Right.
And I'm not talking to you, Sarah, but I'm pointing at
Listeners and
the
users.
people
Yeah.
that I'm talking to right now.
Yeah.
Because in the end, whatever we build is to be used by, well, the community or our customers, depending on which product it is.
Mhm.
So we are also very curious, what kind of things would you like to see? So what we want to do is set up a feature request board, if you will.
Mhm.
So if you have an idea, and it could be a crazy idea, it could be
We love crazy
insanely
ideas.
stupid, impossible, easy, what, it doesn't matter, and just write it down and put it on. And worst case, it inspires us, or maybe even worst case, it gives us a good laugh.
Hmm.
But everything is a good idea.
Yeah.
And we're just curious, like what crazy things can you all come up with? So there will be this new feature board as well, and we'll put ours on our own ideas, and then you can up or I guess downvote would always be possible somehow.
Just scratch it off the board.
Just rip it
Rip
off
it
the
off.
board.
Exactly. Not a good idea.
Yeah, just to get some discussions going as well, and because in the end, that's what a conference is for, right? To get that two-way interaction, which is something I've personally missed for a long time, and I'm very happy that maybe not so much about the travel itself, but being able to go somewhere and have an actual meaningful conversation with people and discussions face to face.
Right,
it's really nice.
Yeah, we had a little minute of break from that, didn't we? And by minute, I mean 2 years. So I'm excited to be back.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah, it's we did an online one 2 years ago, and last year we decided to skip because online is just not the
not the same
experience.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. But with that said, I think it's also worth mentioning that for those folks who are unable to attend in person, there will be a lot of communication that will come after the conference. We probably will record some of the sessions, if not all of them, and we can share that with others who are interested. So, in case you can't attend, please do if you can. That's great. But if you can't make it, absolutely impossible, no worries. We'll relay all of that information that we talk about during the conference to the community so that everybody is aware. Awesome. Very cool. Very exciting stuff to come. Thank you so much for sharing a lot of that. And thanks for telling us about the new release as well. Looking forward to the framework release coming up hopefully pretty soon. And we'll come back and talk about that a little bit as well. But great talking to you as always. And until next time.
It was my pleasure. See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to my talk with Allard. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you plan to visit our conference this year. It will be in person, and we have a lot of great things planned for the conference. And in the meantime, happy coding!